Now it's becoming a habit.
That's fine. But hey, let's cut all the small talk. We got a million things to do today.
I know. So I'm going to bring in Wendy because Wendy Dial has some updates for us for bills that are going to be going on Thursday. So we need to pull Wendy in really fast and get her take on these bills. But then after we do that, we're going to be talking and showing proof that Angela Grunwald, the superintendent of Edmond Public Schools, is not at all being truthful about what she's saying and what she said in her last video. So we'll go over all of that, but I'm going to bring in Wendy so Wendy can tell us what bills we need to watch for Thursday.
Okay, good morning. Thank you guys for having me. It's good to see you all.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
It's been a busy couple of weeks, it looks like, in the legislature with all of these bills. So we do have the General Government Committee that's meeting on Thursday, and the head of that committee is Senator Jessica Garvin. And we need to get Senate Bill 1659 by Jack Stewart heard. That is the provision to re-register Oklahomans.
Say it again, Senate Bill
1659. That was authored by Jack Stewart. It has been co-authored by Shane Jett now.
Okay.
That needs to be heard. There are concerns from lawmakers regarding one of the provisions in the bill asked that only United States citizens be registered to vote. That is in line with Oklahoma's Constitution, Article 3, Section 1, that determines what an elector is to vote. And one of the provisions in our Constitution is that all U.S. citizens are eligible to vote. Well, if that is the case, then you have to establish citizenship when people register in the first place, according to our Constitution. And our state constitution is allowed to do that when the state legislature makes our laws regarding elections. While they are constrained by some of the national laws, the laws that conflict with our state constitution, according to the Supreme Court, our Constitution cannot be ignored by the state legislature. So if we require in our Constitution that only United States citizens are qualified electors, then it would be very difficult for anyone to overturn that legally. They would have to talk about the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 somehow being superior to the law that is in the Oklahoma Constitution. So I see people's hesitation a little bit on that, but when I read the law and I see the Supreme Court decision from this summer regarding elections, they do talk about state legislatures, state constitutions, and that the federal elections clause is not supposed to supersede either one of those two, especially in the area of voter registration. That is a state purview. So I think that would probably be okay. And we should all be under the impression now that we know that Oklahoma is not necessarily, let's say, we don't object to laws that may be controversial constitutionally anyway. I don't think this one would be, but
you mean if they have teeth in them?
If they have teeth in them, but if they are constitutional, yeah, because it's not like we don't have our attorney general in court fighting for Oklahoma laws, that get challenged on a regular basis.
So is there another one that we need to get out?
Yes. SJR 23, Burnstrom, that was referred to the Rules Committee. They do have a meeting also Thursday, February 29th. That actually changes Article 3, Section 1 to state that all, changes the word all in all citizens of the U.S. Being qualified electors in Oklahoma to only citizens of the U.S. being qualified electors. That clarifies the constitutional law. So the chair of that committee is Senator Julie Daniels. So we need Bergstrom's SJR, Senate Joint Resolution 23, to be heard. That basically changes from all U.S. citizens being qualified to only U.S. citizens being qualified. Now, in the House, guys, we did have House Joint Resolution 1048, Eric Roberts's bill to throw ranked choice voting out to the voters as a constitutional amendment. That came out and passed the Rules Committee. So everybody should congratulate the Rules Committee in the House for passing that bill against ranked choice voting.
Oh, good.
There was a little bit of a language change in the committee, but I think that one will be okay. We do need Senate Bill 2034 from Nathan Dahm to come out of the General Government Committee. That's Senator Jessica Garvin. They also meet Thursday. This is restricting absentee ballot to only military and truly infirmed.
That's
that is Senator Dahm's bill to do that. We need that one to come out. Senate Bill 1414 for Burns seems to be stuck, but I'm checking. There seems to be information that a similar bill did pass the House Elections Committee or one of the Appropriations or Rules Committee. I'm still looking at information on that. So we may actually have a bill that came out of the House to require photo ID to vote. It's very similar in the language, I believe, to Burns's bill.
That would be nice.
That would be very nice.
1659 by Jack Stewart. Contact General Government.
That, guys. That re-registers all Oklahomans and immediately cleans up our voter rolls.
Okay, that
is key to clean elections in Oklahoma.
And that's on Thursday, everybody. So contact him today.
Yes.
Then SJR 23 Bergstrom in Rules, contact Julie Daniels, ask her to hear the bill. And then SB 2034 General Government restricting absentee ballot to military and infirm only. Please ask Jessica Garvin to hear that bill. So get that done by Thursday. And we'll have more from you probably later, Wendy.
Yes, I'm sure you can have more from me later.
Okay. All right. Thanks for getting on with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for,
all right.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so I feel like we hurried her off there. I didn't mean to, but we have quite a number of people waiting because I think they want to hear this irrefutable proof that we have about Angela Grunwald. So I'm going to literally just kind of, here's what I'm going to do. We have, let's see the video first.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me find the video. Give me 1 second. I had it up and then bada bing, it's gone. So hang on 1 second and I'll get the video up. And we will watch the video. All right. Here it is. And I will share. Whoops. Stop talking. All right, let me present that video file. Here it is. All right. Here we go.
To provide this video to follow up on the letter you received today. And before I do, I want to just start with, as the superintendent of Edmond Schools, I have two top priorities. The first one is to keep Edmond Public Schools moving forward, leading with a vision where we are providing the very best quality education that any student could receive. That means bringing in new programs or whatever it takes to maintain the quality of education that we have always been known for. The second is to protect this district.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. What's the problem? What are we in? 2 seconds? What's the problem already?
Well, I mean, I don't hear anything about how much they love our kids and how safe they want to keep our kids. The kids should be the number one priority.
What?
Jenni.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I see, hey, let's protect the district. That's what I'm hearing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm mishearing something, but that's what I hear.
Well, you know, when I was a teacher, my first job was to protect the district. That was my first job.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that that as a superintendent, that makes some sense, right? So I mean, right away, she's off the rails on the crazy train, because the first job of any school is to protect the children.
Yeah.
The second job is to teach them subjects.
Yeah.
Those are the jobs. There are no other jobs.
Yeah. Well, normally that's always what they come out with. We love your children. We want to keep your children safe. We want to protect your children. I mean, you hear that on every one of these flash emails or, whatever these, but not in this case. Not in this case. The true motive is to protect the district.
That's exactly what she said.
Protect your children, to keep everyone safe. I have to keep that as a focus as well. So let me explain about why that second one, protecting the district, has become a challenge recently. A couple of years ago, it was set up, actually about a year ago, where anyone could file an Awarity complaint at the State Department of Education about a district. It really started out to focus about bullying, so there was an avenue to report bullying, and I have no problem with that. But I want to say I am a fundamental believer that problems should be solved.
Wait a second, before we go on. So
Where do you want to go? I mean, how much do you want me to say? That's what I'm going to ask you.
Well, let me just say, so she has no problem with reporting bullying, but she can't report an incident in a bathroom at Edmond Memorial where a boy dressed as a girl beat the crap out of another kid.
Yeah.
I mean, am I wrong about that?
They were forced to report that.
Okay. So I guess that's kind of another joke then too. I mean, you would have to say she doesn't really have, I guess you could say she doesn't have a problem with it because she just doesn't.
Yeah.
Do
Well,
it.
and I want to address something real quick, Jenny. The bullying issue in Edmond is off the scales. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents contacted me during the whole school board run, all that stuff, about how bad that incident was. I mean, I still have 3 kids in EPS, and I mean, I know firsthand just how bad that whole bully side of so to say that they're on the whole bull, that they agree with the bully, they don't even take care of the bullying issue as it is. It's literally out of control.
All right, so let's keep going. She believes that
at the lowest level possible. If you have a problem with a teacher, go to that teacher. And if you can't come to a solution, then yes, go to their principal. And if needed, come over here to the central office. And if you still cannot find a solution that works for you, you may need another avenue, which the State Department of Education would be the logical place. However, with these...
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. We are going to absolutely prove without a shadow of a doubt that she doesn't even believe what she's saying.
Yeah.
Because after we're finished, so I want everybody who's watching, we got a nice audience right now. So listen, we are going to show that she doesn't believe in that model. So if a parent goes to a teacher and then follows the chain of command, it still doesn't get solved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awarity complaints, anyone from across the nation even can submit a complaint, and they can submit it about anything that's going on in the district without even following a chain of command. We were made aware of one Awarity complaint that was filed against our curriculum back in August. Then just a couple of weeks ago, the end of January, we received a letter from the State Department of Education based on 5 Awarity complaints that had taken place from as early as April of last year to just this September. And we're told, based on these complaints, 4 of them, which we'd never seen, against our curriculum, that we had to remove some books from our library. It's really hard to make that connection. And so I'm looking at this letter and trying to decide what is our best path, and keeping in mind trying to protect the district at the whole time. So I see that we have 2 paths. One would be to go in and just remove these books from the library. A couple of problems with that. One,
okay, I gotta go back. Did you not notice that it was protect the district again?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure we're getting that.
Books in the library are very protected. There is federal court rulings that says I cannot just walk in and take a book off the shelf, nor can our school board do that. We have a policy in place, it's 3600, that says how books are chosen and how books can be asked to be reviewed and removed, and we know that policy and court rulings protect that. The other path then would be go to the state board and say we are not going to remove those books. The problem with that path is our accreditation is at risk if we do that. Our accreditation can be downgraded. It is very important that your child is going to an accredited school. That transcript is worth nothing if it comes from a non-accredited school. Our accreditation is something that has to be protected. So with all of that said, we are trying to decide which path to take. We decided to go to the Oklahoma Supreme Court based on legal counsel and ask them to make a ruling and to make a decision on what we needed to do. The court is the place that can tell us what we need to do. Or does this rule even stand on its own merit? Does it even have the right to say that we have to do this or this? So that is why we are filing this, is to find out what is the best decision and how to protect our district. I also just want to make a point that I feel like is going to probably be heard in the news or social media. We do not have pornography in our libraries. If you hear that,
there we go. Wow.
What?
I don't know if Dr. Grunwald is being completely honest.
Well, hold on. Well, let's just let her talk.
that is not true. I think a lot of things are probably going to be said in the next few days, and I want you to know, think about the education your child has received in the past and is receiving now, and decide what you want to believe about what might be said and what we have done to earn your trust in the past. I also want you to know this is not going to distract us. Your child is going to walk into their classroom tomorrow. It's going to be their same teacher. They're going to receive the same education. We are going to continue around that first priority of mine of providing a quality education to your children, and we will not be distracted by this. So I just wanted to follow up with this email. Hopefully it made it a little easier to understand than the letter, and to tell you why we made this decision, and just to help you know we are really trying to do what is in the best interest of Edmond schools and your child. And so thank you for watching it, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, my stomach hurts.
Wow. Well, you know what's so amazing about that is how they say that there's been no complaints filed. They didn't know anything. I mean, the last several years, how many moms have gone up on a school board meeting and spoke about those two books specifically for 2 full minutes? I mean, I can name 3 or 4 off the top of my head.
Well, I don't know. Maybe maybe we need to get Dr. Grunwald some hearing aids. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not really.
Let me
Sure.
give you a missing component of this whole thing. Okay, so they're gonna go on the Supreme Court side, and they're gonna say, hey, there's no formal complaint filed with us. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, not one time ever. I mean, I've made multiple requests, multiple emails in to multiple board members, to Angela herself. Not one time has anyone ever said, hey, if there's an issue, why don't you file this complaint? They never even gave that as an option ever. I guarantee you, like at a school board meeting or in some type of, video or some type of anything, not one parent that I've ever talked to has ever said, yeah, they told me that they have a form that I can file as a complaint, which we do have people in the past that did file actual form complaints that we're going to show. But I can just tell you, Jenny, on the formal side of these things, the documentation side, they try to keep everything in-house, hidden so they can get it all swept away and cleaned up and taken care of, just like they tried to do with the bathroom incident and multiple other things. But I can tell you, they don't tell people that there's forms that they can fill out to file, actual formal complaints in the district.
Okay, so let's move
for their proper chain of, their chain of command there.
Right, at the chain of command. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with what we have here. So let's look at this. This is actually one of the complaints that we were able to obtain, and this was for a kite runner. And, basically this woman this person, well, I don't know if it's a woman or not, but it's a person who says, please see attached specific references and reviews related to violence, vulgar language, making vulgar language, gratuitous violence acceptable to children. So, and then it goes on and it talks more, and I'm not going to be able to see it because my eyes are old, but basically, what would you like to do, the school to do about it? And this person says, replace it with another book. And I'm going to say that my mother taught English literature for many decades, and she pulled her the books that she used in her curriculum from old books, from historical books. And they still had the same problems in them because humans have always had the same problems, but they didn't have the vulgar language and they didn't have the sex descriptions that they have now. So this is one. Okay, here's another one. This is for the Glass Castle.
Well, not to mention, if they see on here, the date of this is 5 years. This is 2017 is the date of this.
Oops, I wasn't circling the right place, was I? Was I circling the right place? I don't know. So you can see it up in the top, 2017. So wait, what's the date now, Michael?
Well, I think it's 2020. Heck, it's been 6-7 years later now.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
But
so this has never been complained about before.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so there's a second page to this, and it talks about, what would you like to do? Well, there are other books that can replace it. So that's that. We're going to go into even more depth, so don't worry. We'll get to, So, but what I want to do right now is hit her allegation that there isn't pornography.
Yeah.
Now, part of the thing that we run into is, what is the definition of pornography? Is it a triple X rated movie and that's all it is? Is that all it is?
Well,
is it
so
something
that's what they want you to believe?
Is that what you see? Is that what that's about? And Julie is reminding us here that pornography is illegal. But the problem that we have is she can go out and say, we do not have porn in the library or in our curriculum. And when she says that, no, they're not showing triple X rated movies. No, they don't have Hustler or Playboy or Girl or whatever they have out there. That's not in there. But pornography is a way of describing a sex act. So a description would be in a book, right?
Yeah.
So let's see a little bit about these books. So, and we'll get to this one in a second. Okay, so this is the language in Glass Castle. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it. So if you've got kids in the room, please do not, we have a person, hold on, before we do that, we have a person on Rumble this morning. Oh, and we're not on Facebook today. And I'll get into my rant about Facebook at the end.
Over that.
Because I won't be over it. I'm so mad about that because they knocked us off of Facebook. Okay. So we have somebody on Rumble right now who says, we all know AG lies. She lies about not needing a birth certificate in order to roll in EPS. This was over the trans kid fight at Memorial. That was proven.
Yeah.
They do have to have a birth certificate. It was known. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So here's what we have. Ass, heads up their asses, hell, dumbass, son of a bitch, cocksucker, hell, shithole, hell, asses, goddamned, pud sucking, bastard, banshee, bitch, ass, damn, son of a bitch, ass, hell, damn, damned, son of a bitch, bastard, blah, 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 pansy ass, damn it, god damn it, fucking lazy ass, damn, chicken shit, bastard. Okay, really?
Yeah.
Really? So let's make sure that we understand what this is about.
Yeah. And it's not just one instance of one of those words, like, just once or twice in the book. It's a constant constant
A
barrage.
barrage. So here's the thing. This is the reason why Angela says in the video that this is about the curriculum is because Kite Runner and Glass Castle have been used in the Edmond English curriculum in high school for years. And I'll
Yeah.
show you how we know that for years and years and years. And it's been complained about for years and years and years. But that's why she's saying curriculum, because this is associated with curriculum. And we'll talk about that in a second. So this is for 15-year-olds. So those of you who are going to lie down on the train tracks and want to call us book burners and book banners and blah, blah, blah. And I don't care. Call me what you want. Don't care. Doesn't bother me a bit. I'm not asking to ban a book or burn a book. Neither is Michael, nor any of these parents. We're just saying it's not appropriate for minors. Now, if you can tell me you want your kid running around Walmart screaming all those words that I just read, I'm not sure you're a great parent. No, I'm sure you're not a great parent.
Yeah.
I would be mortified and wash my kids' mouths out. You, Michael?
Well, what would happen to me as a parent if I went into a board meeting and just started using that language or spoke to my teacher, one of my child's teachers with that language? I would be removed from the building immediately.
Yes, you would be. Probably by an armed guard.
Yeah. If I went into my son's, third grade class and I started saying this to the teacher with this language, she would be completely offended and have me removed from the building.
Well, let's just say if you went into your kid's 15-year-old class, if you went into his junior class and read this, I mean, let's just keep it on. Let's keep it even here. If you went into their classroom and read this stuff, right, they'd have you hauled out. And if a kid was saying this in the hallway, he'd be hauled down to the principal's office.
Yeah.
But we're going to have them read it as an assignment, as part of the curriculum. All right, so let's go on. All right, so now they're going to say that there is no pornography. All right, Billy, okay. They'd been gone for about a minute or two, and I heard Brian weakly protesting. I went into Grandpa's bedroom and saw Irma, his grandmother, kneeling on the floor in front of Brian, grabbing at the crotch of his pants, squeezing and kneading while mumbling to herself and telling Brian to hold still, goddammit. Brian, his cheeks wet with tears, was holding his hands protectively between his legs. Okay. Billy smashed his face against mine, grabbed my hair and pulled my head sideways and stuck his tongue in my mouth. It was slimy and disgusting, but when I tried to pull away, he pushed it toward me. The more I pulled, the more he pushed until he was on top of me, and I felt his fingers tugging at my shorts. His other hand was unbuttoning his own pants. To stop him, I put my hand down there, and when I touched it, I knew what it was, even though I'd never touched one before. Really? Honestly, you want a 15-year-old kid reading this?
Yeah,
Where's
that's not
DHS?
Sexual. That's not sexual. Well, if I went into a park and just read that to some kids, I'd be in jail. Yeah.
I felt Stanley's hand creeping onto my thigh. I looked at him, but he was staring at the hee-haw honeys so intently that I couldn't be sure he was doing it on purpose, so I knocked his hand away without saying anything. A few minutes later, the hand came creeping back. I looked down and saw that Uncle Stanley's pants were unzipped and he was playing with himself. I felt like hitting him, but I was afraid I'd get into trouble.
Wow.
Okay, so there are parents, right, that say, this is fine. I read this book when I was a kid. It's fine for my kid, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how in the world do we consider, why are we getting bullied by these people? Why are we getting bullied by a parent who is going to stick up saying, oh, and here's another one. How can Angela G say she's a Christ follower allowing this crap in her schools?
Yeah. Well, and what I want to say, Jenny, real quick, is I came to the realization during the campaign and really getting into all this, parents have no idea what's actually in these books. They don't, all they know is, hey, there's some books. Everyone's making a big deal about, these have some sexual content. They may be thinking back to, like the Diary of Anne Frank, where, she was molested and things like that. But this is so graphic, and it paints an undeniable picture that just goes right into your brain. And parents just have no idea as to the language, as to how bad the grammar is, as to how graphic, just over and over, how graphic these scenes are actually portrayed in these books. And that's what it really comes down to, is parents really have no idea just how bad it really is.
So let's move on. This is Kite Runner language. It's basically the same thing, except they use this C word. How many women who are going to call us book burners, right, went around wearing pussy hats? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
So,
favorite.
and then they'll complain about a man using the C word. Remember what they did to Trump?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh,
for
yeah.
using, they said he used the C word, and that's horrible. But it's okay if it's in a book. It's okay.
Trump, they had to love Trump. Remember, he said, grab her by the, remember.
Right.
I mean, it'll be number one on their list.
I mean, so this is okay for them to say. I don't know what they're getting their panties all in a wad about.
Yeah.
So then it goes on, and this is this is a couple of things that are actually in the book. What a tight little sugary cunt she had. The soldier was saying, shaking hands with the others and grinning. And then there's a section here where he gets raped.
Yeah.
And this is a child. This is a male child getting raped by an older male child. And you want a 15-year-old to read that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm talking to you who are going to call us book burners.
Yeah.
For not wanting
let me
this in
just say
school.
this, Jenny. I mean, if someone wants to take it upon themselves and go get these books for their kids, go ahead. I have no problem with that. I don't want my daughter or any of my boys to be forced to read that in a classroom, period. Or all these kids, they're making a big deal. Oh, there's all this opt-out. Well, we don't want opt-out. You should have to request. Well, first of all, these shouldn't even be available. But if they are going to be available, they should be opt-in only. It should not be required across the board. And they do that on purpose. But yeah, if you want to have your child read that, go ahead. I mean, that's your parenting style. I have nothing against that.
Well, and here's the point that we need to make specifically. If you want your kid to read it, fine. Outside of class, you pay for it. These are my tax dollars. Right? You may not do that on my tax dollar. You may not take the public dime and use it to infiltrate the minds of minors with crap. You can't. So we're not telling you can't read this. We're not telling you your kid can't read it. We're not telling you you have to burn the books or throw them away or whatever. We're not saying that. What we're saying is it's your responsibility as a parent to get that book and read it to your kid yourself. I don't know how you could read that. I have 2 boys. I would be so embarrassed. I would die. There's no way I could read that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you fix that. So let's go back here just a little bit. This is a letter, and I'm going to actually read as much of this letter as I can because it's really hard to read. But this was sent, the from is blocked out, to Brent Town, who was the former EPS superintendent, Ruthie Riggs, Debbie Bendick, Anthony Rose, Cynthia Benson, M. Rexline.
That was Meredith Exline. She was a board.
That's right, Meredith
Exline.
Members
Now.
Correct. You're right. Leanne Coleman, Kathleen Duncan, who was a board member at that time, and the other board member I can't read. And then it was Jeff Nemcock at Edmond Public Schools. Now, I hate to do this to you, but it's very important for me to read as much of this letter as I can, okay? Because you need to hear it.
Yeah.
Dear Mr. Town, Dr. Bennett, Ms. Riggs, Mr. Rose, Mr. Nemcock, and members of the school board, a couple of weeks ago, I received a phone call from my sister who lives in Texas. She said her husband had just spoken with our oldest daughter, who's a sophomore at Memorial. He was concerned because she told him that her English class was reading The Kite Runner. I want to point out that this was sent Sunday, April 23rd, 2017. Do you suppose maybe that this email went with the complaint? Right?
Yep.
The Kite Runner, he told my sister there were some graphic depictions of the gang rape of a child, and he was concerned about her being exposed to that. My sister promptly called me to share her concerns. My brother-in-law is a half Pakistani U.S. Army member, so when I heard he was concerned, that said something to me. I began to research the book and was dismayed and disheartened by what I found. Not only is the graphic depiction of a child's rape in the book, but the language used in the book is appalling. I've attached quotes from the information I found, including the sources to this letter. So she actually gave them all of this information in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. As I previously stated, I found the use of vulgar words to be appalling. Unfortunately, there are some words that I consider vernacular cuss words due to the fact that they're among more commonly said and heard in our society. However, some of the words used in these books go too far. They're not the type of words my daughter might hear in the hallway. They're the types of words I cannot bring myself to quote and certainly don't want to read or hear myself. Upon learning such words and graphic violence were included in these books, I emailed Mrs. Beth Lewis, her English teacher. Now, what was said? What was said by Angela Grunwald?
They don't know anything about it. Never heard of anything like this before.
And she said chain of command.
Yeah.
Right? So let's be clear. What did this woman do first?
Told
She
teachers.
emailed the child's teacher.
Yep.
I asked her to phone call me to discuss the Kite Runner. Mrs. Lewis returned my call the morning of April 16th. I expressed my concerns regarding the graphic scenes as well as the atrocious language. She explained to me that authors frequently use words such as these for literary purposes to evoke emotion toward the character.
Literary purposes.
This is
Wow.
Mrs. Beth Lewis, who feels like pornography. Well, this isn't pornography to her, and it's okay to have two boys in a rape scene.
Yeah.
So it's okay for her. That's just literary expression. She explained to me that the authors, I responded that I completely understand the use of words for literary purposes, such as evoking emotion, but I'm not concerned about that in this situation. I'm concerned about the moral upbringing of my child. I asked how I could have been made aware of this earlier and what could I do in the future for other young children. Mrs. Lewis responded that I had been given the list on the syllabus at the beginning of the year and could have addressed this matter at the time. I told her that it never even occurred to me that I had to check up on the literature that my child was required to read in her public school. This may seem foolish of me, and I'm now aware it was very naive of me, that I assumed that books used as required reading by our public schools would be appropriate for our children. It never once occurred to me that I would need to research each book to see if the C word or any other word were in them. I acknowledge that I'm coming in late to the game here at this point in the semester, but wanted to know what, if anything, could be done for my daughter. She also mentioned that I could request to have her put in an alternate English course, one of which I had no idea even existed. Mrs. Lewis said that I would need to address the matter further with Mr. Rose. Before I continue, I want to make the point that Mrs. Lewis had been reading The Kite Runner out loud in class, and when she read the word cunt, some of the students looked around in surprise that she had said it. This is how my daughter came to learn what the word meant. After class, she asked other students what the big deal was, and those who knew told her. Simply too young to be learning that horrific term. I find it particularly appalling that the teacher said the word out loud. in a classroom. Now, if you had read that at a school board meeting, I'm curious to know if they would have kept you in there.
Yeah. Well,
But
just to reiterate, that's from 2017. And also, Jenny, when you say to make a literary purpose or a point, what if to make that literary point, they actually need to molest a child there? And it's no different. Well, how about a coach, trying to evoke some emotion by striking a kid on the field? I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. No, yeah. I ended my call with Mrs. Lewis and called Mr. Rose. A short time later, my call was returned by Mr. Neemcock. First of all, I want to make it a point that Mr. Neemcock was both professional and very reassuring. He listened to my concerns and validated my feelings. He said my husband and I are not the first parents to have this concern. What did I just say? What did I just read in the letter that you see on your screen? What did I just read? He explained that my daughter could easily do an alternative assignment for the remainder of class, reading The Kite Runner, and that in the future, I could discuss the required reading with my child's counselor in advance of the school year so that our children are placed in the course which my husband and I are most comfortable. While I very much appreciate Mr. Neemcock's cordial response to my concerns and guidance for how to handle this in the future, several questions come to mind. Let's find out what this parent's questions are. First of all, why is there an alternate course in the first place? Doesn't the fact that an alternative course exists state the obvious? If an alternative course offering is needed, why are we using literature that necessitates this offering? What this alternative course option tells me is that not only are there other parents who have concerns regarding the language and violence content of the required reading, but clearly the school recognizes the same since they offer the alternate course. Secondly, my assumption would be that if my daughter were to use any of the aforementioned words in school, she'd be disciplined. What standard are we setting for our children when we provide, or rather require them to read materials containing words that are not appropriate for use in school? If the words cannot be used by the student or faculty in the school, then it seems the materials contained in the curriculum should not also contain these words. That sounds just really irrational to me. Michael?
Yeah. I mean, why would you ask those kind of questions? I mean,
well, I think the
school knows what's best.
Yeah, the school
does.
Why
even question it?
Right. And this parent is just out in left field.
Yeah.
Third, in regard to the graphic violence, I would assume each of you is aware of the correlation found in exposure to violence and potential future acts of violence. This has long been a societal concern of video games and extends to movies and books as well. While I understand some literary depictions of violence are necessary, especially in war portrayals and the like, I do not feel our children should be exposed to fictional or gratuitous literary depictions of violence. Regarding foul language, my mom raised me to believe that words are just words. Neither of my parents used this type of language to my knowledge. Rather, she taught me this so that I would not be judgmental of those who use such language. I've raised my children the same way. I've also raised them to try to avoid situations that put them in the position of being exposed to or even being accepting of such language. I've been very proud of them when they have come to me to share their concerns. We always discuss the situation, sit down and discuss how best to handle it. We did this when my daughter came to me about the language in the book, which happened to coincide with the day my sister called to express my brother-in-law's concern over the child gang rape. In regard to the alternate course, I want to make the point that I had never known there was such an option. Again, I admittedly was naive in believing the school district would only offer literature to our students that was acceptable by all standards, and would have never thought I needed to assume otherwise. But I never once saw or heard such a course being available. It seems to be only those who previously knew about this offering in some way who were able to make this selection prior to the start of the school year. It seems something could be done to make us parents more aware of the option to enroll our children in the alternate course. My hope is that each of you individually and collectively would determine that all required reading materials for our high school students need to be reviewed and reevaluated for their appropriateness of use in our schools. It's evident that my desire would be to have these books removed completely and replaced. I read a separate piece in Hamlet in 10th grade. Let's go back to those choices. At the very least, I implore each and every one of you to make the alternative course offering much more public so that parents such as my husband and I can feel confident that the public school system is supporting our child's upbringing. Thank you for taking the time to read and consider my concerns. My husband and I discussed these matters at length before determining which course of action to take. I hope you're able to perceive my genuine concern for the moral upbringing of my children, as well as recognize my awareness of the need for excellent literature in the classroom. As cliche as it is, our children truly are the future, and I feel we should be elevating them to the standard that we hope they possess as adults. I'll admit I considered typing out each word for word for the sake of using literature to evoke emotion in you, my reader, but I could not bring myself to even type the words. I hope this allusion to them in the attachment has some impact. And then she actually sent an attachment to the email, which was a review of both the Kite Runner and of the Glass Castle. So have we not just completely debunked everything Angela said with that letter? But there's more.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, Jenny, right there, you have a parent basically saying, hey, we had no idea this was even happening. Why weren't we kind of informed as to this may be the content? Plus, these kids get in the classroom and they get into this and the teacher's reading out loud, whatever it may be. The damage is already done. At that point, the damage is done. If a child even comes home and says, hey, this was in my book today, I mean, they've got the whole market cornered with this deal.
Well, I think again, the absolute main thing that needs to be really hit hard is the nonsense that this has never been complained about.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we'll go on a little bit further before, but I want to share my screen here. All right. So here is Edmond Public Schools Administration. Here's district administration. Here's Dr. Angela Grunwald. She has her history of teaching listed on this, and you can read it for yourself. You can go to www.edmondschools.net, page /administration, and you can actually find this for yourself. But she joined the EPS family, serving as an assistant principal and principal of Charles Haskell Elementary School before moving to Sequoia Middle School. She doesn't say exactly when this is, but then she does go on and say she returned to EPS as the assistant of superintendent of curriculum instruction before returning home to Edmond in 2016 as the executive director of elementary education. She was then elevated to associate of superintendent for educational services, and in June 2021 began her role as superintendent. So clearly, Dr. Grunwald has not, I mean, I can understand she hasn't been involved with the school very long. She came here from another state, doesn't really know anything about what's going on. So I can totally understand that. I bet she didn't know anything about the complaints, maybe.
No, I mean, and I think when she came in, she was like director of curriculum or, one of those titles that had to do with that. So, I mean, it'd be hard, as someone coming in to absorb all of that information, especially when it comes to evoking literature like that. So I'll give her a pass.
Yeah,
I mean, she was. I'll just tell you, Jenny. I mean, I think Dr. Grunwald, she was probably a fantastic second grade teacher, but as an administrator and a CEO and a person in charge to run an entire district, she's completely unqualified. And she says it herself. She's always following someone else's direction. She follows the CDC. She follows the legal team. She follows this. She follows that. She's following whatever plan has been set out to put these books in front of these kids instead of making a stand and standing up for these kids individually and saying, you know what, I don't know if this is really appropriate for you guys. I'll let your own families decide if you want to have this. We're going to provide you the best possible content and best possible education. In fact, I think my number one priority, Jenny, if I was Dr. Grunwald, this is what I'd say. I think my number one priority is to get my reading proficiency rate up from like 50%. I want to get this district up to about 90%. I mean, I think that would be a little more critical.
Well, I don't know. Can you do that and protect the district, since that's her, like one of her two top things, right?
Yeah.
Is to protect the district. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So
She
let's
says it. Yeah, she says it right there. Her first priority is protect the district. That's it. It's not about your kids. It's not about your family.
so here's we're gonna show how I'm just gonna have to I don't know how else to say it other than lying, when she says that no other parents have complained about this. So this is from our blog, our original blog that started in I don't remember when, 2008 or something like that. I mean, it's old. And this book or this particular article, if you can see it says 11/25/2014 up here. And it's one mad mama takes on Edmond school board over sexually explicit books assigned to sophomores. Okay, 2014. Okay. So if you actually read this article, which is on our blog, you can actually find it. It's not on our website, but our blog is linked on our website on the front page if you want to go there. I'm going to read you what this says. Dear parents. Now, this is a woman. Her name is Stephanie Berland. She came to me. She emailed me when this was going on and said, I don't know what to do. I've talked to everybody. I can't get any, just like this other woman that we just showed. She followed the chain of command. So this BS about the Awarity system and that's going outside the chain of command. Come on. Parents have been following the chain of command. You haven't been listening. So praise God for the Awarity system that just goes over your head when you choose not to listen to them following the chain of command, or who will come to the board meetings and talk to you about it at the board meetings. I mean, it's super easy to just shake that off, but then the Awarity system makes you cross. That's so interesting. So this woman, Stephanie Berland, actually got so upset because EPS wouldn't listen to her about the Kite Runner and Glass Castle. This is the same thing that she was talking about here. Okay. And her sophomore was assigned these. So she wrote a letter to the parents because she couldn't get anywhere. And here's what she said. Dear parents, if you're a parent or guardian of a child in a high school in the Edmond Public School District, I ask you to please read this email. Currently, there are 2 books that are required to read and purchase in the English department of high schools in Edmond. They're introduced in sophomore level English. The books are titled Kite Runner and the Glass Castle. Both of these books are in the American Library Association's most challenged or banned list due to their content. The first book deals with aggravated sodomy and pedophilic rape of both girls and boys, and the latter with a racist mother sexually abusing her son and grandson, alleged molestation by an uncle to his niece, alcoholism, anti-Christianity overtones, and more adult topics. Please take time to research these books, and if you feel as a parent if they're appropriate for your child, then that's your choice. If you don't want your child to read these books, then I would ask you to call your principal and express your concern. Currently, there is a choice to opt out, but again, I suggest that you understand what this looks like and why parents are required to opt out of something when most don't even know that they were enrolled. The Educational Board of Edmond Public Schools must abide by BP number 3600 Instructional Materials Guideline. These criteria can be found on the EPS website using this link, which, by the way, you can't anymore. It's invalid. Parents can fill out Form 3600F to have the school reevaluate the choice. However, I feel the district did not vet out these books by using their own established standards listed in BP 3600. You can also express your concern by emailing or contacting your elected board member by district. To find out who your elected official is, refer to the attached map. Lastly, I ask you to please forward this email to any parents or guardians you know that this may affect. I don't know of any other way to get this important information out to parents. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, concerned parent Stephanie Berland.
Yeah. And what was that? 2016 before even?
No, 2014.
2014.
Yeah, 2014. This
And
is back
that was in Edmond.
14. Yes, in Edmond.
Yeah.
Edmond Public Schools. But we're not there. We still have a few more things.
Let me remove that. I
yeah.
wanted to show just one more example of the language.
We'll throw it in there, and then I'll show my example.
In some of these books. So this is a book here, and I don't know how you change the size of that, Jenny.
You
see
can't.
do it.
I haven't been able to figure out how to do
Well,
it.
I've seen you do it on your side, but anyway, this is a freshman book in Edmond, and if you just look at the words of concern here in this book, I mean, I don't even want to read them. I mean, I'm not going to, because it's just it. And another thing I want to say about this book has literally no punctuation in this book, but yet it's just gonna, I mean, they're gonna say the F word 50 times. They're gonna say, it's just mind blowing that that's as good of literature as we can provide these kids out of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of books from our past. This is the best we can come up with right now.
Well, let me show you this. Let me pull this in. All right, so this was published by the Federalist. This was when I was writing for the Federalist regularly. This was the thing that my first publication in the Federalist. Parents shouldn't let schools force kids to read smut. Please note the date. Here's the date down here.
March 15th, 2016.
Okay. So let's go through this just a second. So this now in 2016, this is, I actually, in this particular article, I included 3 separate women, one from Oregon and one from Virginia, who were moms who had gone to their schools, because this is nationwide. This is really a ploy to denigrate children.
Yeah.
And not teach them anything that they need to know, but to make them desensitized to smut, so that they and give them this false sense of autonomy, so that people above them, so that they can remain ignorant and they can be directed by the people above them, and they don't have the critical thinking skills, to make that stop. This is what this is about. Okay. So in this article, I talked to a woman from Oregon who told me about the Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison's book that was included in Common Core and the Common Core State Standards, which, as Julie will know, we had Senator Josh Brecheen read on the floor of the Senate during the Common Core debate, and they shut him down. They wouldn't let him read the crap that was in there on the floor of the Senate. But by gosh, we can allow high school kids to do it. We can let high school kids read it. Yeah. But we can't allow adults on the Senate floor to hear it. Can you make sense of that? Anybody? Help me. Help me. All right. I'm just so mad about this whole thing. It gets me just So here's something. Kim Heineke, who is the Edmond mom who came to me about this in 2014, I believe it was, or 2015 initially, and then I wrote this in 2016. Kim Heineke had a kid in Edmond Memorial who was also assigned the Kite Runner and Glass Castles. And he talked to the teachers, and the English teacher's response to him was basically that it was an award-winning book. And kids hear this kind of thing all the time.
Yeah.
So I felt as though, this is Kim, I felt as though I didn't have the right to tell them that I didn't want my kid to read it, because they just made me feel stupid. So she wrote a letter to the superintendent at the time and wrote in the things that we just talked about. Okay. She also tried to make parents aware of what was going on. She created a form letter and, so that they could send it to the superintendent and the board. But she found that few parents would use it. They didn't want to make waves because they didn't want their kids to be singled out. Parents didn't know what the book was in the book, but once they knew, they assumed if a teacher was putting their signature on it, the teacher knew best. Instead of saying, it's my kid, it's my choice, making waves with teachers is intimidating. And Kim told me, and I don't think I wrote about it in here, but Kim told me that basically what happened is she just said, we'll opt you out. Well, here's what happened to her son. Are you ready? So her son was singled out and sent to the library where he had to sit there and read another book. So that everybody in the class made fun of him because he had friends who were still in the class that were telling him, "Oh, the teacher made fun of you today while we were in class because you don't want to read it because your mom's approved." How do you like them apples?
I have something to add on that, Jenny.
Go ahead.
To add on that. Okay, so we opted my daughter out of one of these classes. After we found out, how hardcore it was. Well, anyway, they literally go into a separate classroom, and all the books are pretty much the same, except they're not forced to read, those two books. But the teacher is the same teacher that she would have had. And the teacher constantly was making little under the breath, little snide remarks. "Oh, well, you are in this class because your parents don't want you to read this kind of material." Constantly undermining us as parents, our decisions, constantly just kind of making little comments all the time, and who do you report that to? What's the chain of command there? What do? You got to send your child in with a recorder to record this teacher, and what they're saying and doing. And then you got to, so the whole thing is just unbelievable.
Do you remember when I
know
told
that
you
firsthand that my daughter would come home and tell me those things exactly and tell me what the teacher would say exactly.
Oh, so this lady who's commenting on Rumble, my daughter's teacher at North made a comment about the kids in the opt-out class. So this didn't just happen to you, Michael, or Kim Heineke, or it happens to, because teachers so many teachers, I'm not going to say every single teacher, but I've already said, if you're a teacher and you're a nice teacher and you put up with this stuff, then you're a problem too. I'm sorry. But these teachers, so many of them are just bullies. I mean, I was bullied. Part of the reason we homeschooled it, I was bullied by my kid's third grade teacher. She was just horrible, called and left the nastiest message on my machine so that all the kids who were in the kitchen that day when she called could hear it on the answering machine. And they came out, I was gardening. They came out to the garden. They were like, "Oh my gosh, Mrs. So-and-so left the nastiest message on your machine." I'm like, these teachers literally believe that parents are stupid and must be bullied to fall into place because they know better and they know how to educate your kids better.
Yeah.
So let's go back to this for just a second. So, I'm trying to find I hope people will look this up and read this. Okay, in her letter to the Edmond School Board, Kim Heineke asked administrators to reconsider the assigned books for the high school book list or to inform parents about the sexually explicit nature of books on the list. She also argues that applying the section of the student handbook on inappropriate language to the books in question would mean they couldn't be read aloud in a classroom. She never argued that they should be banned from public use. So that's the other thing, you lefty people who like to scream book burning, blah. It's specious. It's an entirely specious argument. It is a lie, just as the same as Dr. Grunwald's statements about these books are just lies.
That they've never heard anyone ever complain about these books. There's been no formal complaint about these books.
Critics of identifying books with sexually explicit and graphic content often like to argue over the definition of obscenity, contending that because everyone has a different definition, police power is impossible. They stand on the idea that what's okay for one reader should be okay for all other readers, classifying conscientious objectors as prudes. The point Heineke makes in her letter, however, seems to make sense as a simple test for obscenity for teens. If passages from an assigned book can't be read aloud in the classroom without violating violating a school's appropriate language or behavior code, it seems more than reasonable to warn parents of the book's content. For example, if a student could be referred to the office for using the F word, reading list books shouldn't contain the same language. How hard is that to get? So are you telling me you basically want all the kids running around your school using this kind of language? It's just okay now?
Yeah. Well,
This
let's
is where
not
we
even talk.
are.
Hey, here's a news flash, Jenny. Let's not even talk about the language. Okay. So language is a part of it. How about the sexuality? How about my son, my junior high son, comes home and tells me that a real good friend of his was getting a blowjob in the bathroom at school from a girl. How about that?
No, my God, honestly.
How about that? You know, where do they get these ideas? You know, they're so desensitized, and it's literally just reiterated and just impacted and just multiplied when they go in their class and they're reading these books that literally say the exact same thing. They're literally reading about all these sexual acts in these books, and they can use their own imagination. They can start thinking about their friends and this and that. And, oh, what if we did this? You know, I wouldn't doubt there's probably a scene in one of these books that says that exact same thing. Hey, we're at the school. You know, I got the, I did this and that. I mean, wow.
So I make the point in my article, classic literature deals with difficult topics better. So Dr. Terrence Moore, who taught at Hillsdale for years, wrote a book, The Story Killers, A Common Sense Case Against the Common Core. And he said, I do not read postmodern literature that often so depressing is it. But from what I can tell, it falls into two major categories, which sometimes overlap. Either the author has an axe to grind, or the author offers a bleak view of the world and human nature such that one wonders whether there's any point in living. Haven't we had a problem with suicide?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's these nasty, disgusting, dark books, like Dr. Moore says, that are contributing to that.
Yeah.
This is manifestly different from pre-20th century literature. Not everything in older literature is rosy. Dostoevsky, for example, is often dark, yet the man is presented as salvageable and human life has meaning. The conversation between Rashkilinov and Sonya, where the former uses modern logic to assert that the ends justify the means, is cut to pieces by Sonya's, a prostitute's, simple rebuttal. You've forgotten God. There's nothing redemptive or hopeful or heroic about the supposedly sophisticated fiction written today. Do you want examples of good selfless living or self-focused misery? How do you feel after you read a book, after you exit a world? I mean, it's so true.
Yeah.
People,
You go back to examples from the past, like sex ed. When they started teaching sex ed, then you started having the pregnancies and all the major deals. You go back to, keeping these kids off of drugs. They know that more kids got addicted to drugs through those programs that were put into schools. I mean, they know it. There's been study after study that's shown, like DARE and all these programs are complete failure and actually hook kids on drugs. So here you have this molestation, coming in from these books, whatever the medium is. There's an agenda behind it. And these books, I mean, I don't care what anybody says, a book can be a weapon. It can be a weapon for good and it can be a weapon for bad, either or. So it's the introduction of what the content and the message of that book is ultimately what that weapon's going to do. Is it a force for good? Is it making you a better person? Or is it going to turn you into a sexual deviant? And that's what's happening. There's no respect. It's divide and conquer. I mean, it's literally just, they're programming these kids and they're just continuing to do it, and it's getting even worse and worse.
Well, I wanted to point out, because Scott Hassan makes a really good point. So I think you and I need to deal with this really fast. And I know we're getting over, but we've got a lot of people on watching this morning because people want to know when school people are lying to them.
Yeah,
I mean, the public school takes our money and then just turn around and treats us like crap and lies to us. I'm sick of it. I know there are a whole bunch of people that are sick of it. We're all sick of it, and it needs to stop. And I think the best thing to do is doing what we're doing, showing exactly how people are being wrong about what they're doing and how they're basically lying about what they're saying. And we need to be able to deal with that. We lost Michael for a second. I don't know what happened to Michael. Is he coming back? Oops, he's got to go. Okay. So I want to deal with what Scott just said. So just on Tuesday, the Senate Education Committee meets. And the Senate Education Committee, which is led by Senator Pugh, who actually whose district lies in Edmond, he routinely actually puts the agenda for the committee meeting out just specifically 24 hours before the committee meets, so that you don't even really have a chance to hunt down, and see what it is that they're putting up. Well, on Tuesday, he floated SB 520, and you can go look up SB 520. Here were the problems with it. Number one, they posted on the agenda a different name for the bill that literally was not what was in the bill. He had taken a bill he had already written, gutted it, and put in new language. And here's what the language said. The language said that they wanted that the bill then would remove accreditation, the job of accreditation, from the Oklahoma State Department of Education and move it to the Department of Educational Quality. Or the Commission for Educational Quality. And it's got some other names in it. I can't remember the whole thing every time. But here's the point. Why? Why would this just pop up? Why would Senator Pugh take a bill that has a title on it that's something completely guts it, puts in new language about accreditation, when we have Dr. Grunwald out here complaining that her accreditation can be dropped because of these two books that have been made complaints because of a rule that was established and I've got the rule here and I'll show it to you in just a second. But it's rule 2010.35-3-121. And that's the rules that she's talking about that prohibits sexually explicit books in schools. And if a school is found to have sexually explicit books, it can bring down their accreditation. So now all of a sudden, here's this bill that pops up at the very last minute.
Yeah.
In the Senate Education Committee, and it's to move accreditation standards from the OSDE. And here's the problem. The OSDE has an elected head. If I don't like Ryan Walters, and there are some things that he does that I don't like, I can get him unelected. I can go out and run somebody against him. I could run against him. Heck, I mean, he could be deposed from his job by voters, by citizens. What's the Commission for Educational Quality? Who's that run by? A bunch of bureaucrats that are appointed by the governor. The swamp. That's the swamp. Okay. So why would you do that? Because you don't want our superintendent right now, Ryan Walters, is attaching accreditation to this garbage that's ruining kids' minds. And beyond that, when you look at the reading index score of, let's say, Hamlet, because somebody brought Hamlet up, right, as reading it in 10th grade. Look at the reading index for Hamlet versus the Kite Runner. The reading indexes are drastically different. These new books use the most ridiculously simple language. It doesn't strain your brain. It doesn't cause you to develop new vocabulary. It doesn't cause you to learn anything different. None of that. If you had to read a Hamlet, you'd have to go actually research some of the language because a lot of it is Old English. You wouldn't be able to know it just right off the top, which means that you would have to work to do it. The brain would actually have to function. These books are horrible. Do you wonder why our scores are coming down? Our proficiency scores are coming down. It's because we feed kids crap and then complain that they aren't able to do a good job on tests. How ridiculous.
Yep.
How ridiculous.
Nail
So
on the head.
basically, this is what ended up happening on Tuesday. Fortunately, a lot of people saw through all of this and got mad enough to be able to stop that bill, and that bill was stopped in committee and it was not changed. But the other point to make here is that anytime something like accreditation or another something that's that large is moved from one agency to a commission or from one agency to another, they usually have some kind of interim study on it or something. There wasn't any interim study done on this. This was just done on the fly because Angela Grunwald was complaining.
Yeah.
The other point is that Adam Pugh told me to my face that he would not bring up the bill to have a recall of school board members because he didn't want to have his members on record. Wow. These are our elected officials, peeps.
Yeah. Well, let me make the point, Jenny. What's accreditation really equal? It doesn't equal scholastics. It doesn't equal the best possible education that you can ever get. It equals one thing, and that's money. That's what it equals.
Let me just
Schools
pull in,
will lose money
because we're going to have to get off of here in a little bit. I know people, but we still have quite a nice audience. So, all right. So I want to show this because this is, hello. Can you share it? Why is it not coming up? Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay. So I want to point this out because parents who are either on right now or might get on, later on and watch this later on. I want you to be clear about this. This is nothing new. This is something that has gone on for years, and I want to show you how I know. Books, and more books for teens. This is something that was written by, I had a friend, Julie McKenzie. We started ROPE together in, 2002 or 4 or something like that. And Julie, or I guess it was 2009, I guess we started it. And then she wrote a piece in our very old website that's not in existence anymore. And I found it actually on the Wayback Machine, and I pulled this so that I could show it. This is actually on our Scribed account. I want to make these were books found in the Deer Creek Middle School Library in 2010. Evolution, Me, and Other Freaks of Nature. As if it's not bad enough being ostracized by her church, her friends, and even her parents for blowing the whistle on an ugly campaign to reform a supposedly gay schoolmate, Mina finds herself embroiled in further drama when the unit on evolution comes up in high school class. Brandy spares absolutely no sympathy for Mina's persecutors, but the tale is rescued from turning into a catch-all anti-fundamentalist creed by providing an unusually appealing supporting cast. There's a classmate who introduces Mina not only to his unconventional family, but also to the twin forbidden pleasures of kissing and Lord of the Rings. Let's see. Unwind, about a book about a futuristic tale of people who can abort themselves as adults. How do you like that one? There's one, Debbie Harry sings in French after Johnny's dad dies in a car accident and an unintentional drug overdose lands him in the hospital. He moves in with an uncle, gets a girlfriend, and starts to explore his interest in cross-dressing. This is 2008. Ruby wants to support her family, but when her taxi dancing causes problems, that's pole dancing for you and me, she could not have anticipated it takes all of her strength to come up on top. This often chilling story describes the life of a boy growing up in a graveyard as he's looked after by ghosts and a mysterious guardian. Abby Savage is determined not to be like her mother and sisters, who each became pregnant as teens, but her only confidant is Cody, who has his own sexual issues. Are you getting the point here?
Yeah. Well, let me make a quick point to that, Jenny. Those things are so tame compared to today's curriculum. So the advancement of what they're doing is just getting completely snowballed, exponentially. So imagine that, what you were seeing back in 08, a little sporadic here or there. Hey, someone was kissing or this or that, or, maybe someone was exploring some cross-dressing, to now full on sexual scenes. Where are we going to be in five more years, 10 more years? I mean, literally, how much worse is it going to get? Just in the short-term future. I mean, it is going to, unless we stand up, unless we do something, unless we bring the attention to everyone at this point and say, hey, this thing is out of control. We need to get a handle on it. The parents need to be informed. And that's what we've always said. We need to have informed consent when it comes to these classrooms. We have no idea just how severe the sexuality is in these books and the actual content. And like you said, the index of how challenging these books are. They really making you think, or they drawing, or they really just desensitizing you towards a deviant sexual lifestyle, because that's really and you know what, we didn't even hit on all the violence. The massive amount of violence in these books is, I mean, it's like as bad as the worst movie you could ever even just watch on TV. Your kid couldn't get into the movie theater to watch some of the scenes of violence in some of these books.
Well, you're going to like this guy that's just commenting on our Rumble channel. You guys should look into Richard Kane Elementary. They make it very difficult for parents to come visit and wouldn't let my daughter wash her hands when they go to the bathroom as a class because it takes too long.
Wow.
Well, how often have you been able to go see your son and sit down and have lunch?
Yeah, none. They won't let me.
Wait, you pay for the building, but you're not allowed to go in?
Well, that's all private. The school district's private, Jenny. Even though they use our money, they're not necessarily accountable to us lowly little taxpayers. They can do their own little protocols and have their own policies that supersede the Oklahoma State Constitution, and they can supersede the Constitution of the United States, but because it's their own policy or their decision, they're the supreme authority.
Well, look, you and I are pretty close to as libertarian as I think you can get. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't care what you read. I don't care any of these things. These things don't bother me. Do what you want.
Yeah.
But here's the difference. The difference is when you do it on the taxpayer dime and you do it to people under the age of consent, which is still 18, then you and I are going to go to fisticuffs. I mean, I may just even go to fisticuffs with you. We'll just like meet in the parking lot because I'm getting so sick of this. Children are not adults. They're not even little adults. They're not adults. And I don't care if you read it and you thought it was great.
Yeah.
You're an adult. You are an adult. And I don't know how many times I have to say this. I simply don't. That, you and I said as a gag one time, remember I told you I wanted to make a t-shirt that said, "Bring back shame."
Yeah.
Because we don't have any shame anymore. Nobody cares about this. No, and I think the way to make our point is we need to get like 25 or 50 parents who really are sick of this too, to go to a school board meeting and just stand there and chant the F word and the C word and the blah, blah, blah. Just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, because if it's okay with Angela, she can't remove everybody who's doing it because it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
and the last point we need to make is she says in that video, she is going to use taxpayer dollars to fund a taxpayer dollar loving attorney.
Yeah.
They don't even have to. I mean, these people, they don't even have to get a real job. They just suck up to schools where they can get that free tax dollars.
Yep.
And they're going to go use my tax dollars to fight me in Supreme Court.
Yeah. Well, it's
over dirty books.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, she doesn't seem to be honest here about the books, the whole chain of command, the process. It's never been an issue before. So she seems to be lying there. She didn't seem to be honest about the transgender bathroom issue. Didn't seem to be honest there. She didn't seem to be.
I think we could say that she wasn't, because we know for a fact she said that they didn't have a birth certificate for that person, so they didn't know what sex that person was, and we know that there has to be one on file.
Yeah. Well, she didn't seem to be, she wasn't necessarily forthcoming in the lawsuit with the COVID lawsuit and all of that stuff. I mean, she's on the stand and she's asked, and this is the CEO of the company of Edmond Public Schools, basically. I mean, that's how you have to look at it. Every CEO I know, they know what the cost of the flowers are outside that are being put in the ground. The attorney asked her, "What's your budget?" She didn't even know what her budget number was. Didn't even know. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. And we've got all that.
But don't forget, during COVID, the school boards had to turn over all of their authority to the superintendent. Remember that?
Well, I want to bring up one thing. I want to put up one thing here for parents. If you want to know just kind of what, what's going on in any of these schools with books, we have, where's this? Where's mine at? Right here. On the Edmond Did You Know website, we have the book summaries. So this is Edmond Did You Know? And this, most of these schools, like you said, this is kind of a national program. So these books are pretty similar, but we've had parents read every single book from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. We're working on 12th grade right now. You can click on the summary and you can read the summary of, if you see any of these books in your own classrooms, you can come in here, read the summary. And it's pretty basic. I mean, we come in here, I'll just click on All American Boys here. There's just a simple kind of synopsis. And then we've got words of concern. Here's another one. Look, here's massive words of concern here. And then we kind of talk about some topics here, and then we quote, just have quotes from the books. So every single one of these books have been, non-biasedly reviewed. We just go in here and here's just every instance of these words. So, there's no excuse. Oh, you know what? I shared the wrong screen there because it popped up a separate screen when I clicked on one of those books. But anyway, we can take that down because I'd have to share the other screen. But you can click on any of those links outside of those books, and you can see a full, unbiased, just review of, hey, here's some quotes out of this book. Here's the language. Make a decision if you want your child to read that book. But that's a great service that's been provided by parents in Edmond, reading every single book in the Edmond curriculum.
Well, Scott Hassan again, he's talking about Deer Creek School District. And then he also says Mickey Dolenz has filed HB 3813, which is essentially the same thing that Pew tried. And that's the other thing I love about our legislature. And it's just kind of like, our legislature loves citizens as much as superintendents apparently love their patrons, because they do this same kind of thing all the time. If it doesn't work on the Senate side, they'll go over to the House side just to try to confuse the voters so that they can't figure out what they're doing. It's just, honestly, we sit what is it that oh gosh, the Christmas movie that Elf. What is it that Elf said to Santa Claus when he knew it wasn't the right Santa Claus? You sit on a throne of lies.
Yeah.
We sit on a throne of lies, people. Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure we just sit on a throne of lies.
Let me make one more point. We're pointing the finger here. We've been kind of hammering Angela, whether it's fair or unfair. I think it's pretty fair. I mean, we're just stating the obvious, but ultimately you've got a school board that allows these things. The school board is what dictates what happens within that school district. And if you go back and rewatch this podcast, you'll see that those school board members that are still there, they're the same people from 7-8 years ago getting those emails from concerned parents.
They know.
And they have allowed this the entire time. They're just as implicated. They're just as guilty as anyone in this whole thing. And shame on them They're the weakest people in your local school district. When it comes to today's time, they should be the strongest. They're our only avenue. They're our advocate. They work for us. They do not work for the school district. They're all apologists for the school district. They protect the school district's interest when they should be protecting our interest as parents. That's why we put them there. So when you have a board member that doesn't take action, doesn't come up and say anything or do anything, or completely ignores your emails or whatever, you know, when you try to talk to them, that's what you get.
Well, so I've got to tell you something, because this made me laugh so hard just a second ago. So we just had a person comment that the attorney that's working with Grunwald to take this to the Supreme Court, that attorney lives on my street. He is actively updating his home and drives his Tesla.
Hey. There you go.
Why am I laughing? That's all tax dollars. It's
Yeah.
all tax dollars. That's your tax dollars at
That's
work.
your tax
people.
dollars at work.
All right. That was quite the we had a lot of really good comments today. So I mean, Michael and I really appreciate you very much watching, and we had some great interaction here today. And thank you so much for watching. And please, those of you who did watch and were interacting, once we get off of this thing, man, share this link with people. And and especially you guys who are EPS parents, share this with your friends, share this with people so that you can they can see that the superintendent is not being truthful with you. And she's going to fight books that have been complained about by parents since minimum of 2014. And when you had a school teacher reading the C word in a classroom of 15-year-old children. So let's not forget that. Okay. Have a good day too. So I want to make this quick rant to close. So Sunday or Monday, I was on my Facebook account and I got a message saying that somebody wanted to connect with me, and that person knew a person that I knew from the Common Core days. And so even though I should not have done so, I clicked on that, and that person got access to my account, and then apparently made up a disgusting Instagram account, which got me removed from Facebook. And so what? Okay, I get it. But here's the problem. Our Rope Facebook page was hooked to my account. So once my account went down, and by the way, I'd had that account since 2008. So this is the problem with all of this, electronic garbage. It has no feelings. It has no ability to reason. It has no care about anything that's going on. It just hits an algorithm and shuts you off. So I'm going to have to start a whole new Facebook page. Then I'm going to have to figure out a way to see if we can't get that page, get our Rope Facebook page hooked back in so that we can get that going again. So those of you who had to watch us on Rumble today and on YouTube, because you couldn't get us on, we actually have several of you watching from X. But that's why you had to, because we can't get our Facebook page to work right now. And just be super careful. I learned a really hard lesson. I figured that I was going to scoot it. I mean, even during my insurrectionist days, I managed to get, kind of scoot the fringe and get out of anything. And then, and it's interesting. So we have the thing going on with the state election board, right? We're bringing information out about that. We're bringing information out about, we're going to talk to Whitney Mullica next week about Pike off OTA. We talk about dark money, and all of a sudden I get hacked and my Facebook page goes down. I don't think you need to have and Julia says she still has access, so we'll have to figure out how to make that work. Thank God for Julia. Thank you, Julia. But still in all, be careful on social media and cover your butts on that, and have somebody else or figure out a way to do that, because it doesn't care. And they'll get you whether they want to get you or not. And if somebody does want to get you, those systems aren't people people don't run them, algorithms do, and you'll be off like I am. So
there we go. Well, I'll just say, you know, kind of close out my thoughts. Now, I'm not calling anyone a child predator. I'm not calling Angela a child predator. I'm not calling any teacher a child predator. But I will just say it like I say all the time. The predators are going to be where the kids are, period. That's where they're going to be. Yep. You're going to have child predators in administration. You're going to have child predators as janitors. You're going to have child predators as coaches, as teachers, yep. Whatever. They're going to get access to your kids. No one is going to come and save us. We have to take action as parents, as Christians, as conservatives, as libertarians, as whatever your denomination is, whatever your political affiliation is. It's up to us to provide the social side of our child's education, not school districts. If we let the school districts go unchecked, this is where they're going to go, and they're going to go even harder. They're going to go harder and harder and harder unless we fight back and push back and say, hey, we're not going to just allow you to do that. So I'm glad to be in the fight. I'm glad that, you know, we are getting more and more traction. This is becoming a larger issue. I mean, if they've got to take it all the way to the Supreme Court to try to defend themselves. But the point is, you know, whatever the outcome of that decision may be, and they may find some technicality of free speech or whatever to get off, that doesn't mean we stop. That doesn't mean we're defeated. We have to continue on to just point out how dangerous this is when you're introducing information like that to a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old brain. Those things create, you know, images and pathways and introductions into lifestyles that may have never come across the way that a book. I mean, books have authority. That's why they're doing this through the book system, is because when you open a book, a physical book, it has authority. It has an actual, you know, it's not like just hearsay or a movie or this or that. You know, it has a sense of authority and correctness and you know, knowledge to it just built in. You're reading a book, you believe that this is the correct knowledge. And I'm telling you, this is all, you know, this is 100%. This is a plan to destroy and deviate the minds of these kids. Because where they're ultimately, Jenni, look, where their mind goes, their heart's going to go. Ultimately, that's what's going to happen, is they're going to corrupt these kids, and they're going to have a lifestyle that sooner or later they're going to absolutely regret.
Well, I think we're seeing, I know that a lot of people like to say that technology is responsible for a lot of what we're seeing right now. And I know that there are a lot of parents and teachers and people who say, well, why can't we just do this in school? They're going to see it on social media anyway. Yeah. I mean, because we've heard that argument a billion times. And the point of the matter is that parents regulate social media. And if they don't, they're idiots. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If you're not regulating your kids' social media and they're under 18, you're not a super smart person, because that's what you need to be doing. Because you're right. They can see all kinds of stuff that you don't want them to see on social media. But that's not paid for by taxpayer funds. Yeah. And that's the bottom line here. We taxpayers are paying for this stuff that is really harming the minds of children in the care of people who should be elevating those minds. Yeah. So, and you can argue all you want. And I really, again, I don't care. You can call me what you want. I just don't care. It doesn't bother me. That's the only good thing I think that I figured out about becoming older is that I don't care. Yeah. All right, Michael, I just love being on with you as usual. And I feel like we did what we came on here to do, which was to make the case that Angela Grunwald is not being truthful about what's going on with this particular curriculum issue, as she says. And we need to call out incorrect information wherever we see it. So,
well, and I want to thank all the parents that do stand up, that do send in emails, that do contact their teachers, that do go to school board meetings and speak out. I mean, because they're acting like they don't even exist. and there are parents that do that. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do that. But I have the utmost and just admiration and respect for those people that do that.
And let's close by saying this. Angela Grunwald was very upset about this Awarity program because it circumvented the chain of command.
100%.
How many parents did we talk about today? 3 specifically that followed the chain of command and weren't heard at all. Period. So I'm sorry, Dr. Grunwald, if there's a way to get heard, and apparently they did get heard through this Awarity system, because now all of a sudden you want to go to the Supreme Court. I just cry fie on this whole bunch of nonsense. It's just a bunch of nonsense. There were people that followed the chain of command, and there was nothing done for those parents.
Yeah.
All right. We will see everybody on Friday. On Friday, we have Nick Rosado will be on with us. She's going to talk. She's a former nurse, and she's going to talk about a healthcare forum that was held on the 10th, I believe, of February. And she's going to talk about that. And unfortunately, that is something that we still have to deal with, is medical tyranny. We're seeing tyranny in every pocket of our lives, sadly, anymore. School tyranny, which we just talked about, medical tyranny, which we have had since 2020, and COVID. And she's going to be on to talk about that. So if you have an interest in that, and you know somebody who does, please have them join us. And you can interact with us like so many of you have today on Rumble or on X or on YouTube. And we'll see your comments that way. And we will see you again on Friday. Thanks again for being with us, and see you then.